Mangwana ni malelepo vukenjani kleklas dumilam vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Mberi. We're hoping to be joined by Talent Gore as she delivers the Zimbabwe Report. Admittedly, as we were talking just before we came live, we were having some connectivity issues. So we'll see how that goes. Should she not be able to make it, I shall deliver the Zimbabwe news myself. But prior to that, these are the top stories we're looking at from broader Africa. Malawi begins return of citizens as xenophobia fears grow in South Africa. Ramaphosa promises action against groups linked to xenophobic violence. Domboya allies secure majority in Guinea legislative polls. And World Cup supporters frustrated by United States visa restrictions. And this is part of that story. Somali referee Omar Atan, who was said to be the first from his country to officiate at the World Cup finals, has been denied entry into the United States. So those are some of the stories that we are talking about on Africa Good Morning. DSTV285 GOTV25 oneup2.com and NTVAFRIK.MY.NA. That is where you can watch the show. My name is Ashwin Mberi. Top stories shortly.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises, from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us. Something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative sport tourism.
All right, it's time for us to get into the top stories. A group of 150 Malawians repatriated from South Africa amid growing concerns over xenophobia is expected to arrive in Malawi by road, according to the Malawian authorities. The repatriation follows violence in South Africa's Western Cape province, where reports emerged just over a week ago of door-to-door intimidation and the deaths of 2 Mozambicans in Mossel Bay. Malawian authorities said those returning were among a number of foreign nationals who had sought refuge in temporary camps in Mossel Bay. Ghana, Nigeria and Zimbabwe have also organized repatriation flights and transport after raising concerns over xenophobia in South Africa. Anti-migrant groups are demanding undocumented migrants leave the country and have set 30 June as a deadline. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa gave a national address with regards to this on Sunday. And so let's get into our second story. South Africa will act against groups behind xenophobic violence, President Cyril Ramaphosa said in a televised address as anti-immigrant protests continue to attract attention. Ghana, Nigeria, Malawi and Mozambique, as we said, are repatriating some of their citizens caught up in the arrest. He also said groups would not be allowed to use legitimate public concerns to encourage lawlessness and violence. The president cautioned citizens against stopping people on the streets to demand identification documents, stressing that enforcement of immigration laws remained the responsibility of the state. He said migrants were being blamed for problems linked to poverty and high unemployment. Government measures include stricter enforcement of regulations, changes to immigration laws, and cooperation with other countries to address the causes of illegal immigration. Ramaphosa also highlighted plans for dedicated immigration courts and the replacement of Green Book identity documents with biometric digital identity cards across the country. Here is South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa in his own words.
No other person is allowed, for example, to confront someone in the street, in the pathways of our country, to demand proof of identity. We know that South Africans are not xenophobic, as there is no space for xenophobia, for racism, for sexism, for Afrophobia, or any other form of intolerance in South Africa. As communities and as a society, we must not be tempted to join those who want us to turn against people who were not born in South Africa and who are in our midst. We will and must not allow groups to use the legitimate concerns of South Africans to destabilize our country through inciting lawlessness and violence.
Now, political parties backing Guinea's President Mamadou Doumbouya have secured a majority in the country's legislative elections, according to provisional results released by the Electoral Authority. While the final distribution of the 147 parliamentary seats is still being determined, the Generation for Modernity and Development Coalition and its allies had won at least 100 seats. The outcome further strengthens the position of Doumbouya, the former Special Forces commander, who seized power in 2021 and later won a 7-year presidential term in December, a result disputed by opponents. Nationwide voter turnout reached 52.87% for the legislative elections and 58.51% for communal elections, which were held at the same time. The country's top election official, Aminata Torres, said political parties had 8 days to challenge individual results before the relevant judicial bodies. Now, final results will be announced after any disputes have been resolved. Now, football supporters from several World Cup nations have expressed frustration over travel bans, tighter restrictions, and visa difficulties linked to matches being played in the United States. Iraqi supporter Abdullah Adnan bought tickets for Iraq's matches against Norway and France after qualification, but was unable to secure a visa after routine consular services were suspended in Iraq. He traveled to Jordan for an appointment, but was informed he could not receive a visa there because he was not a Jordanian citizen. Fans from Haiti, Iran, Senegal, and Ivory Coast are also affected by restrictions linked to United States visa policies. Julian Coadio Adonis from the Ivory Coast Supporters Association described the measures as a form of segregation, while Senegalese fan Aliou Ngom said he felt there was little point in applying. BBC analysis of United States Department data found visa rejection rates above 40% for applicants from 11 of the 48 qualified countries. Jordanian Supporters Association head Abu Kas also said his own application was refused after attending an interview in Amman. And speaking of refusers, one which is standing out quite clearly for Africans in particular is that of referee, the best African referee. Let's have a look at that post, which was by BBC Sport with regards to the referee Omar Atan of Somalia, who was set to be the first from his country to officiate at the World Cup finals, had his visa denied. He was denied entry into the United States. And keeping in mind, Somali, more or less anticipating this, had already decided that they would give him a diplomatic passport. Even that was rejected. Keep in mind, this is Africa's top referee. He's 33 years old. He was preparing to be at the World Cup. And such issues have been propping up quite a lot in the United States, so much so that Mayor of New York, Zoran Mamdani, had this to say.
Be the denial of visas for journalists from certain countries, or the rejection of a visa for a coach of a team, as well as single-day visas for specific foreign national teams. This is anathema to what this tournament is supposed to be about. If we cannot even allow the players, the teams, and the journalists covering those teams to come into this city and this country, then it begs a larger question about our commitment to the spirit of this tournament. And we want this to be a tournament that reflects our commitment to us being part of something larger than ourselves, and that's the world's game, which everyone should be able to be a part of.
So So those are the words of Zoran Mamdani as we all pay attention to the World Cup, which is set to begin on 11 June. We're keeping fingers crossed for the following nations. Let's have a look at the nations representing Africa. It's a record number of 10, which includes runners-up of AFCON, Morocco, winners of AFCON, Senegal, Algeria, Tunisia. South Africa plays the opening match on the 11th of June against Mexico. A replay of the 2010 World Cup, but this time no Shabalala, but there's quite a few sundowners there. Egypt, Mohamed Salah's last sprint. Can he finally get Egypt a World Cup win? They are yet to win a match at the World Cup. Ghana, with the likes of Semenyo of Manchester City, are hoping to show what they've got at this World Cup, particularly after missing the Africa Cup of Nations. Ivory Coast, not in short supply of superstars, is also going to be looking to set their footprint on the World Cup. The DR Congo, with our famous Lumumba fan, are also going to be representing Africa, and Cape Verde, newcomers. Last time it was to AFCON, this time it's the World Cup. They are still Africa's darlings, and we absolutely wish them the best. Those have been the top stories on Africa. Good morning. We're going to have a look at the weather before Talent Gore joins us with the Zimbabwe Report.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises, from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us. Something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative Sport Tourism.
All right, it's time for Talent Gore to deliver the Zimbabwe report for us. In the first story, Air Zimbabwe has missed its June deadline for London flights. Good morning, Talent. Take it away.
Air Zimbabwe will miss the June deadline for resuming non-stop flights to London, which was set by Mutapa Investment Fund Chief Executive Officer Dr. John Mangudya, with the national carrier now targeting a July 1 launch date for the long-awaited Harare-London Gatwick service. Mangudya stated in January that the airline would be flying to London by mid-year, saying he had been assured by the airline's chairman and Chief Executive Officer that the route would resume by June this year or before June. The deadline is now quietly slipped by, and the flights will be operated under an ACMI, which is ACMI arrangement, which is aircraft crew maintenance and insurance with Spanish long-haul carrier plus ultra liners Arias providing the aircraft and crew. All the service operates under the Air Zimbabwe brand. The model allows Air Zimbabwe to re-enter the route without relying on its own fleet, which lacks serviceable wide-body aircraft for long-haul operations. Air Zimbabwe last flew to London in December 2011 when the airline's urging Boeing 767-200 fleet was threatened with repossession by creditors and was struggling to meet European regulatory and insurance requirements. In the years since, successive transport ministers and Air Zimbabwe executives have announced imminent London relaunches, none of which have materialized. So we're just hoping that by June 11, there will be a flight which will be operating from Harare to London non-stop.
All right, Talent, thank you for that update. Now, Zimbabwe has secured a seat unopposed on the United Nations Security Council. Tell us more.
Zimbabwe was elected unopposed for a non-permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council on Wednesday, and President Emmerson Mnangagwa said the election marks a significant diplomatic milestone for Zimbabwe, which will represent the Africa bloc. This is the third time that Zimbabwe has held a seat on the UN Security Council since 1980. And President Emmerson Mnangagwa said the resounding victory underscores the effectiveness of Zimbabwe's engagement and re-engagement agenda, demonstrating the global community's confidence in Zimbabwe's leadership and commitment to international peace. The African candidate, which was Zimbabwe, and Caribbean candidate, which was Trinidad and Tobago, had no opponents and both were elected with more than 180 votes. The Security Council is mandated under the United Nations Charter with ensuring international peace and security. So this is a huge milestone for Zimbabwe, as the country has been trying to re-engage with the Western countries. The government has an agenda, which is the engagement and the re-engagement agenda, whereby they're trying to re-engage with the Western countries. So this is a huge milestone in which Zimbabwe has a seat now on the UN Security Council.
All right, now the most contentious subject in Zimbabwe right now is CAB 3, the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3, which seeks to extend the president's term to 2030, and of course to do away with public voting. Well, not public voting, but one vote, one person with regards to electing the president. It would now be decided by the members of parliament should it go through the legislative process. It is now being debated in Parliament. Talent.
And in my next story, parliamentarians are expected to vote on the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Bill number 3 in the National Assembly by Friday this week, marking a decisive stage in a legislative process that could significantly reshape the country's governance, electoral and institutional framework. Debate on the bill is forecast to be completed early this week before lawmakers proceed to the committee stage and subsequently vote on the proposed constitutional amendments. Parliament adjourned on Friday and is scheduled to resume sittings today to continue deliberations on the bill, which has attracted widespread interest because of its far-reaching proposals on elections, governance, and institutional reforms. Most legislators who contributed during last week's debate, including some from opposition parties, spoke in support of the proposed amendment, arguing that they would promote policy continuity, reduce political polarization, and create a more stable environment for long-term national development. But there are others within the National Assembly who also voted against the bill. So this coming Friday, that is when the legislators are going to vote whether they want the CAB 3 or they do not want that amendment to take place. But there has been a lot of debate surrounding the whole idea of the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3, with most citizens voting, or rather going against that Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3. So right now, everything is now in Parliament, and we are just waiting to hear and to see how the parliamentarians themselves are going to vote, whether they're going to vote against or they're going to vote in support of the Constitution Amendment Bill number 3.
All right, now in your last story, Talent, a Russian man is in court for the attempted trafficking of a Zimbabwean man.
A Russian national appeared in Zimbabwean court on Wednesday, charged with human trafficking after allegedly facilitating a Zimbabwean man's travel to Russia. Leonid Kovtev, 36, appeared before Harare magistrate Jesse Kufa, facing additional charges of failing to comply with immigration conditions and operating an unregistered employment agency. He was remanded in custody to June 9. The National Prosecuting Authority alleges that Kovtev was intercepted at Robert Mugabe International Airport on Monday while facilitating the victim's travel to Russia. According to court papers, detectives received information that Kovtev was working in connivance with an accomplice identified only as Constantine, who is said to be based in Russia, to recruit Zimbabweans to travel to the country. Kovtev arrived in Zimbabwe on May 28 on a 30-day holiday visa and stayed in Mandara, Harare. Prosecutors alleged he recruited one victim and arranged a Russian e-visa, airline ticket, and hotel accommodation, scheduling his departure on an Ethiopian Airlines flight. On Monday, Kovtev allegedly collected the victim from Budiriro and drove him to the airport. Detectives intercepted the pair and recovered the victim's Russian e-visa, air tickets, and hotel booking, confirming from Kovtev's possession. The state opposed bail, arguing Kovtev is a flight risk given his foreign connections and could interfere with witnesses and investigations. So Kovtev will be back in court this Tuesday, where he will be answering to the charges of human trafficking. It is believed that he was trying to get this Zimbabwean man to go to Russia to fight in the Russian war. So we are going to be monitoring the situation and also to get more insights this Tuesday when he appears before the Harare Magistrate Courts.
All right, thank you very much, Talent, for delivering the Zimbabwe report. And that's it from us on Africa. Good morning, DSTV285 GOTV 25, Network Media Hub, and NTVAFRIKA.MY.NA. That's where you will find us. Tomorrow, Rorisang Mohojwe says Dumelang from Gaborone, Botswana, as she delivers the Botswana report. And as usual, we'll be bringing you the most potent stories from broader Africa. From me, Ashwin Berry, and the Africa Good Morning team, Swera Zakanaka.